First up, let's get to Canberra. Joining me now is the Australian's chief political correspondent, Geoff Chambers. Geoff, great to see you. Thanks very much for your time. I mentioned The Voice and the AFL. We had a strange old day today, didn't we, with this parliamentary committee sitting in Canberra. And at first, Tony Abbott, former PM, not invited to speak to them. And then that decision was suddenly reversed, all a little bit embarrassing. What was your view of the way Tony Abbott prosecuted his case?
Well, just to start off, Steve, I think consistency in giving all sides a say in this debate over the Voice referendum is absolutely critical. And ironically, and Tony's a very savvy operator. He obviously prosecuted the side of the monarchists during the Republic debate, and ironically, he achieved more publicity in the fact that he wasn't invited to speak before the committee than, in fact, if he had been invited to speak to the committee. And I think Tony made a valid point that you can't pick and choose who appears. You had former politicians that were afforded that opportunity, and I think Tony obviously has garnered plenty of attention today. I think Tony's position on The Voice has been very, very clear for some time now, and he's clearly lining up as an asset for the no side.
Geoff, I watched a fair bit of it. You'd have to describe the mood in the room as rather, frosty, and I think that the questioning was pretty aggressive, particularly from the Greens senator, whose name escapes me. But Tony Abbott kept his cool, didn't he?
Oh, he was in this place for a very long time, and he's taken many arrows over the years. So I don't think it bothered him too much. But you obviously had the dynamic there of Noel Pearson also being in the room, and the pair of them have long history. So I think it's just important that you do get all sides of the debate, particularly through this committee process, which has been very rushed. And you've got to question the validity of it so close to that final vote coming back to Parliament in June.
So what is this committee actually trying to achieve, Geoff? I mean, are they going to bring down a new way that the question will be posed? We're not going to get a date out of this committee, clearly. What's their purpose? What's their job?
Well, their job is to review the constitutional amendment, the wording being put by the government. It's a majority government committee. There's very little chance of that wording being changed. And there are several coalition members on the committee, and they're obviously prosecuting some of their concerns around the wording. But ultimately, we're going to see Anthony Albanese sticking to his plan, and we're going to see Peter Dutton on the other side of that.
The Nine papers today, Geoff, had some polling done by the YouGov outfit. And I was interested in the way that the Nine papers actually interpreted the numbers. They say that nationally 51% of respondents will vote yes, 34% no, 15% undecided. But when you drill down into those figures, and I think I made a reasonable fist of it, you look through the individual states and you look at WA and Queensland in particular and the territory of the Northern Territory, they're all under that 50% benchmark of voting yes, so they're up around the high 40s. Did those numbers surprise you? And what are you hearing when you look at polling like that as to what the outcome of this referendum is likely to be? You getting any clearer picture, Geoff?
Oh, it's hard to get a clear picture at this point, Steve. There's a lot of tracking polling, and I've seen a lot of that polling, and they're all showing a very similar thing, and that is that the no side is definitely hardening. Then you've got this big cohort of undecided voters. They're not engaged, and we might not see a lot of them engage until closer to the October-November referendum. So look, the no side are going to go really hard in Queensland and Western Australia, where the vote is at its softest. And then they obviously have to try and go for a third state, which would be probably Tasmania or South Australia. But they will be up against it because the yes side is very well resourced. And the no side, when it comes to money and manpower, are going to be struggling. So they're going to direct a lot of their resources into those states where you're seeing the softest support.
I spent a couple of weeks in WA about a month, 3 or 4 weeks ago, and I went to small communities, towns like Geraldton and Kalbarri up on the coast there, about 5 or 6 hours north of Perth. I mean, the feeling I got from people in those communities was simply, well, we've got some Indigenous issue problems in these towns, and we don't think the Voice is going to do anything to fix it. So I get a feeling, and it may be people coming up to me because of a profile I have, thinking I want to hear what they're going to tell me that they're going to vote no. But I get a sense that there's not an overwhelming rush to vote yes in this referendum at all. I might be wrong.
I think the results out of regional Australia and remote areas is going to be fascinating. I suspect the yes side will be relying heavily on metropolitan areas in terms of popular vote, particularly your big bases like Sydney and Melbourne.
I was staggered, Geoff, in another story today. Our old mate, I know he's a good old mate of yours, Andrew Clennell, he broke this story today that there are goods being sold under the NDIS by as much as 1,000% above what they should cost. He revealed things like, you got a lightweight aluminium shower chair. You can get one for $169.99 probably at Bunnings. One NDIS company charging $1,150 for a similar product. You got a toothpaste tube squeezer, whatever that is, $12.95. Normally they're charging NDIS $94 for it. And a packet of incontinence pads you can get for $39. One firm supplying people under the NDIS charging $283 for it. And a walking stick that you can buy for $34.95 being sold at $39.95. It's a government pot of money, and I don't suppose we should be all that surprised, should we, Geoff?
I know, look, wherever there's a government program, there'll be someone there looking to rip it off. I think we've seen so many successive governments talking about rorts and waste in the NDIS, and taxpayers absolutely expect best value for money. Now, it's in the actual enforcement of that that we'll actually see what kind of returns, what kind of savings you can get. The government's announced a $720 million package. So investing more to save more, that's their message, and their aim is to lower that annual growth in the scheme from 14 to 8% by 2026. So there's some big goals for the government, and I guess you've got to also look at those new entrants, all those kids that are in the scheme, and also the funding model in terms of the funding split with the states and territories. So big decisions to make. Obviously, we want best value for money, but we've got to see this in practice now in terms of what this actually achieves.
Gee, the PM's got a big month coming up, Geoff. I mean, as we know, he was in Queensland today. He's apparently flying to Darwin tonight. I don't know if that's in response to the troubles in the territory. He was wearing a Yes baseball cap today. He's then on a plane to the coronation. Last weekend, he was at Shock Jock Kyle Sandiland's wedding, and then he's got to come back and host the Quad meeting in Sydney, and he's got a budget jammed in the middle. Is he doing too much?
Oh, it's a huge agenda for the Prime Minister. And I think he is. It's going to really test him. Over the weekend, he was heckled for the first time, came under a bit of pressure over attending Kyle's wedding. Kyle's obviously a very colourful character with colourful mates. But you can understand a politician chumming up to Kyle, given the size of his audience. But look, we've got the Voice referendum later this year. We've got a lot of overseas travel for the Prime Minister. And then we've got these other serious economic pressures coming down the line, whether it's people on fixed interest rates coming off. It was around 800,000 that will be coming off throughout the year. You've also got those huge energy bills, grocery bills. So that's going to really start biting by the end of the year. And the Prime Minister's been flying very high over the past year, but he will be coming under a fair bit of pressure.
Thanks, Geoff. Just in a word before you go, interest rates tomorrow, up or hold?
I hope they hold.
Thank you. Geoff Chambers from the Australian